Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very special moment in the life of the British Racing and Sports Car Club. This is the first ever BRSCC esports competition, an officially sanctioned esports competition from the club. It is the BRSCC Winter Esports Series, and we are getting very excited for what should be an amazing evening of racing in store. We've got some 30, almost nearly 40 Mazda MX-5 Global Cup cars here for the first three races of the season here at Oulton Park in Cheshire, and with plenty of BRSCC real-world drivers. If you've watched the championships that the BRSCC runs and follow all the way throughout the 2022 season, and even previous years for a couple of them, you will definitely know some of these names. They're going to go head-to-head to see who can beat one of the best drivers out there in the virtual world when it comes to racing amongst the BRSCC paddock. I'm Scott Woodwis, media and marketing for BRSCC and also a long-time commentator as well. I'm delighted to have Andy Thompson alongside me in the commentary box for this season as well. Andy, first of all, welcome to, I guess, the first ever BRSCC official esports series. You know, of course, these MX-5 Global Cup cars inside out on iRacing. These are not only a fantastic tool for beginners to get involved, being one of the free pieces of content on iRacing, but also as well, these are one of these cars where they're easy to get to grips with, but as even half the field will know here in MX-5 racing in real life, they're incredibly tough to master and to get right, particularly when you're driving one of these cars for the first time.
Yeah, good evening, Scott. Good evening, viewers, and I'm great to have the opportunity to join Scott in the commentary booth for this very first season of the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. And yeah, as you were saying, these Mazda MX-5s are certainly the beginner car on iRacing, but they are hard to handle. Certainly no ABS or anything like that the modern GT3 cars have. And looking at your schedule, Scott, you've got some excellent tracks to really test this little car. It's not the fastest car out on the iRacing server, but it is the most enjoyable. I've certainly commentated on quite a few Mazda Cup series, and the really thing that comes to the forefront with these Mazdas is the fact that they're really evenly matched. So it's all down to slipstream, picking your passing opportunities wisely and making them opportunity moves. But if you lose a slipstream in these cars, it's very hard to come back in. But for a first track at Oulton Park, I mean, we couldn't get a better combination of the MX-5 around Oulton.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. And I know that there are many real-life Mazda MX-5 races with the BRSCC that definitely do enjoy Oulton Park as a circuit. To take you through the schedule, we're going to be running 2 races this side of 2022, and then in 2023 we're going to break for Christmas, and then going back in for 2023 into January. We'll have 2 races in January, 2 in February. We start here at Oulton Park. A couple of weeks' time on December 15th, we'll go to Silverstone International. Then the Christmas and New Year break. Then we're straight back in on January 12th at Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. Then we venture to a circuit which I don't think MX-5 has actually been to before, but some of the drivers here in other series that have visited across the border will have done. Knockhill in Scotland on January 26th. Then it's February 9th to the BRSCC's home circuit, in inverted commas. That's Brands Hatch Indy, being the club is based in Kent. And then we thought, as a final hurrah for the series, rather than a UK-based circuit, we thought we'd mix it up a little and go stateside, because we're going to go to the circuit that used to be sponsored by Mazda, and that is Laguna Seca. That will be the season finale, where if it hasn't been wrapped up already, we will decide our first ever BRSCC esports champion in this BRSCC Winter Esports Series. So you're seeing here on screen one of our many contenders. We'll see particularly is Richard Harwood. So Richard Harwood is one of our Mazda MX-5 racers in real life, and he's currently at the moment sat in 8th position in the qualifying session. Only a couple of minutes to go. The current pole position at the moment is the man who's mainly flying his craft in Civic Cup this year, and he will be next year, I'm sure, which is Will Redford. He is top by about 3.5 tenths of a second from number 76, which is Tom Griffiths, who is a regular MX-5 Mark III Super Cup racer and BMW Compact Cup racer. And then in 3rd place, it's currently number 88, which is Mikey Doble, who is not only a BMW Compact Cup champion this year, but he also clinched on the same weekend, believe it or not, the Ginetta GT5 Challenge as well. So 2 championships won in 2 different separate series on the same weekend is a pretty mighty impressive feat. Then it's Sam Smith. If it is that Sam Smith, it is a former Mazda MX-5 champion. 2-time MX-5 champion, number 44, yes indeed he is. 5th is Jack Noller, who's part of the Williams Esports outfit. He's a Mazda MX-5 Champion Mark 1 driver. And then Will Blackwood Chambers, who is this year's brand new Mazda MX-5 Super Cup Championship champion. He did ask, because he is a champion, he could run number 1. I said technically there is no champion, but we've had to have number 1 for this one just in case. Then Lee Britton 7th. 8th at the moment is currently number 60. Which is John Higgins Jr., also from Super Cup fame. Harwood from Mark 1's 9th, and then 3-time MX-5 Super Cup champion Luke Herbert is up there in the top 10. So it's pretty clear on this one, Andy, that if you race the MX-5 in real life, you're a bit good in the virtual ones already, because in that top 10, the majority of those are mainly drivers who race one of these cars in real life, whether it's a Mark 1 or a Mark 3. It seems as though in these Mark 4 Global Cup cars, it's pretty transferable.
Yeah, it definitely is. iRacing tries to be as realistic as it possibly can do to real life situations. Obviously, they scan all the tracks. The cars are as they should be in real life. And as you were saying, the Mazda Cup drivers will have an advantage in this car. I mean, certainly Will Redford at the moment at the top, who is an avid iRacer himself, seen him many a times on Apex Series in the past, and obviously going forward. So I'd expect he'll have a slight advantage going into this round, but it's going to be entertaining.
Certainly is. I saw a couple of position changes just at the end of that, but it is seeming though that if you got that rear-wheel drive experience, even though, Mikey Doble, who I saw pop up into 2nd place right at the end, is going to be key. So here's the grid then for the first ever Mazda MX-5 Winter Esports race for the BRSCC. It's Will Redford, Civic Cup racer, who starts on pole position, but only just by BMW Compact Cup champion Mikey Doble on the front row. It's MX-5 Super Cup and former BMW Compact Cup racer Tom Griffiths, who comes next 3rd, alongside double MX-5 Super Cup champion Sam Smith. Then it's Jack Noller, Mazda MX-5 Mark 1 racer, and the new MX-5 Super Cup champion Will Blackwood Chambers, who starts 6th. Lee Britton, also MX-5 Super Cup, will start in 7th place, and John Higgins Jr., also Mazda MX-5 Super Cup, starts 8th. Mark 1 racer Richard Harwood is 9th. 3-time Super Cup champion Luke Herbert starts in P10, but it's Matt Kendall in car number 11. From Richard, in car 67, he is also part of the Compact Cup, and Richard David in car number 12. He's up there in 12th position. Richard Jepp, who was the driver who took the student motorsport title for MET Motorsport, starts 13th, and he was alongside Ben Craner, who won a race outright in a student motorsport car at Croft. That being for Oxford Brooks, he starts in 14th. George Pelosi, also City Car Cup, alongside Joseph Doble from the BMW Compact Cup. Chris Etheridge in car 326 from the Citroen C1 Endurance Series, starts in 17th place. He's alongside MX-5 racer Simon Hutchins in P18. The top 20 is completed by this year's City Car Cup champion, that being Richard Bliss and Robert McGregor in car number 117, also for Mazda MX-5s. It's Rowan Lundy from the Club Sport Trophy, Jason Greydrex from MX-5 Championship, Harry England, who's one of our Fiesta Junior races, starts 23rd, and John Pethick, who was runner-up in the MX-5 Clubbing Championship, starts in 24th. Still, we scroll back. Andrew Dyer from City Car Cup and Keith Dalton from MX-5s make up row 13. Then Matt Goddard, who is in car number 18, also MX-5s, alongside Aidan Edgar, to Gary Preble, who was in this year's C1 Championship. James Riley, also C1s, Aidan Edgar in Mark 1s as well. Callum Greydrex, again at MX-5s. Huel Rosenthal and BMWs, Alex Port, Nick Grindwood and more are in the mix. So, red lights on then for the first ever Winter Esports Series racing. We're underway in racing here at Oulton Park. It's a clean start from Will Redford as they charge down towards Old Hall Corner for the first time. Mikey Double slots to the second place to head in towards turn 1. Looking pretty clean the first couple of corners already. One or two of the rubbing panels as they turn their way through. Looks like Lee Britton and Sam Smith were getting pretty close. But down the hill, down the avenue towards Cascades, and already, unfortunately, there's one or two cars off in the barriers at turn 1. We'll look to catch up on those in a second if we possibly get any replays, but head in towards Cascades. Apart from a little bit of skirmish at the back as Lee Britton goes off onto the grass, can he keep it out of the barriers? He gets a little bit sideways, but he just about holds on to it, but he's way down the order as they charge down Lakeside for the first time. So one or two cars hitting a little bit of strife, Andy, in the early couple of the corners, but a clean start from Will Redford from pole, but he's already under pressure from Mikey Dober and co as they head up through Shell for the first time.
Yeah, it definitely is. A pretty clean start overall at the front half of the grid. The back half of the grid had a little bit of an issue coming around Old Hall Corner there. I think about 4 or 5 cars were involved, but everybody seems to be. We've got 3 people back in the pits. Stuart Bliss, Jason Reddix, Nick Grindle in the pits at the moment from that first lap. But these tyres take a little bit of while to warm up on the iRacing like they do in real life, so these drivers just need to be aware of that because their braking markers will be not the usual when the tyres are warm. So as we see here, try and move down in, as we see a slight little tag there coming down into turn number 10 and 11 there, but literally side by side action at the front. And what this is giving an opportunity for Will Redford at the front to start maybe trying to pull away. There's a little bit of a gap between 4th and 5th on track between Jack Nola and Will Blackwell Chambers, but all relatively close, compact as you would expect on this first opening lap round Oulton Park.
Yeah, it's quite a breakaway pack of about 11 or 12 cars. They head out of Lodge into Deer Leap for the first time to complete the first ever Winter Esports lap across the line. And we'll see who is where across as they head across to start lap number 2. There's a Redford leads then, Doble in second, Tom Griffiths sits in third, Jack Norris fourth then from Will Blackwell Chambers, John Higgins Jr. Then it's going to be Sam Smith, Richard Harwood. You see Ben Craner here under attack from, that was Joseph Doble. Craner runs wide over the curves, but the rest of the top 10 is Harwood in 8th, Kendall Light and Luke Herbert rounding out the top 10. Still side by side on the run down towards Cascades, but looking down the outside, looks Joseph Doble, but Ben Craner says not in your life, sunshine, all the way through Cascades, back in, but he runs a little bit wide over the curb. This might also give a chance for George Palazzi, the City Car Cup race, into the mix as well. And the rear-wheel drive favourite certainly favouring the MX-5 and getting to grips with it a little bit quicker than some others. Some of the big shakers in the pack on that opening lap. Keith Dalton was one of the biggest movers, up 6 places from where he started, up into the top 20. A couple of other cars were dropping downwards as well. One of the big losers in that one, I think, was McGregor in the mix. There's one car into the barriers is Matt Goddard, and I think he tagged, a recovering Lee Britton, and unfortunately Lee's off into the barriers as well. Lee Britton, who of course to say is a real-life MX-5 Super Cup racer, so he's not too unfamiliar with these cars, at least the Mark III version in real life. Off in the barriers gone Sam Smith. That's the double MX-5 Super Cup champion, also hitting strive. So mostly clean in his first lap and a half or so, Andy, but 1 or 2 cars not quite having the best of luck out there as the leading group of about 6 or 7 cars makes the start. It makes its early breakaway now heading through turns 1 and 2. So let's take a look at a couple of replays.
Yeah, looking at Sam Smith here coming up through Britain's coming up. Does he clip the inside? Yes, he clips the inside of that corner there and then sort of losing controls, gets tagged from the back, and you can see the front right suspension pretty much well shot on that MX-5. That's a very tricky part of the circuit in these MX-5s. Britain's, you know, you've got to be really precise with your lines where you're trying to take that. Otherwise, you can see exactly what happens there. Clip that inside tyre barrier, which is not like a normal tyre barrier. It doesn't flex on iRacing, and it will certainly damage the car, as we saw there.
As you were talking there, we had a real proper mirror-to-door mirror battle between Luke Herbert and Ben Craner, and here comes Joseph Doble with a great one on the pair of them. He's up the inside of one of the student motorsport drivers for Oxford Brooks in real life, but Craner is not going to give it up easy. He goes sailing round the outside at Old Hall Corner. This might give George Palazzi a great chance to get in here. They're all chasing Richard Jepp, who, as I mentioned, was the driver behind the Met Motorsport team that won the Student Motorsport Challenge within the City Car Cup this year. He's currently sat in 9th at the moment. This is the battle for 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th. Also chasing after them is David as well, just behind them too. So he's going to be in the mix there. But watching Ben Craner on board here as they turn through Island Bend. He's all over the back of Luke Herbert here as that car wiggling around on the approach towards Shellors, under brakes, punch it down the gears. Needs to try and get through. A little nudge in the back, just says, come on, get on with it. If you're going to chase past Richard, you're going to have to go a little bit quicker than this. And now as he gets back up through the gears. And Ben Crane is quite a young driver. We've got plenty of pace in him, but he's got some guts to try and go after a 3-time MX-5 Super Cup champion. Give him a shove in the back by saying, come on, a bit faster than this. We've got to try and catch the guys in front.
Yeah, it certainly has, do. But currently watching Richard Davis here in 14th. Oh, is he... There he is, back up on with George Pelosi, and Thursday coming down here into turn number 10. Another tricky part of the circuit that you've got to be really forceful on. Not advisable probably to go too wide into that corner. Seen plenty of action in the past, and I'm pretty sure that we might do today. But as you were saying, Scott, a lot of these drivers are professional, real life racers. Maybe professional is some of them are up there, but certainly know how to handle these MX-5s. And like you were saying, the top drivers, the top 10 certainly at the moment, being dominated by the MX-5 real life drivers. So got a real advantage being in an MX-5 season, have the real life MX-5 drivers, but doing quite well at the moment. At the front, we still got Will Redford, 0.5 of a second over Doble, so not really making a move at the moment. You see there, fastest lap from Griffin's in third place, a 1:52.290, so extremely close out on track. But here we see Ben Kramer just trying to keep that inside line coming around turn number 1, managing to hold off Doble behind.
And just further back here, we're watching him. That's Rowan Lundy going into contact, I think, with Simon Hutchins, and also in there too is Chris Etheridge as well. Chris Etheridge, another one of the Citroen C1 racers, a few drivers who competed in the Silver Lake C1 Endurance Series throughout 2022. Good to see them getting in the mix as well. There's Simon Hutchins in car 37. He's been a previous driver in MX-5. He's having that scrap with Keith Dalton here. This is over 17th position. Dalton gets the run as he has the inside line down Lakeside towards Island Bed now. As he comes up towards the left-hander, it's a short 15-minute races, so they're about the same sort of length that you get in an MX-5 Clubman race. Now we look back at Keith Dalton here, because Etheridge makes the dive, has a bit of a gap here. Little touch on the inside there for Simon Hutchins, forces him out wide. That might give a chance for John Pethick, who was the runner-up in this year's MX-5 Clubman Championship, to Declan McDonald. And he's also got behind him Andrew Dyer, who has been racing in the City Car Cup, and I believe next year he's going into the brand new Audi TT series. He's in the the Harlequin liveried car. For those who know what the Golf Harlequin is, it's got a multicoloured panels on that number 21 car. Just behind them there is Rob McGregor in car 117, and just behind them in 333, doing quite well, is Harry England. That's Luke Herbert in the pit lane. That looks like broken front left suspension. So problem with the 3-time MX-5 Super Cup champion. The champion's not having much luck today. Now down towards the chicane here, looks like at Hislops, and I wonder, Andy, is this another clip tyre stack?
I think it well is. Oh! That was, I wouldn't say that was a clipped one there, Scott. I would say that was a full-on head smash into there. You know, really like I was saying, these tyre barriers, the drivers are probably used to them tyre barriers. Flexing a little bit in real life. In iRacing, they might as well be concrete blocks, because they certainly stopped that MX-5 in its track there. So, unfortunately, a nice slow pit drive back to the pits for that driver there. But certainly interesting here. But looking back from Mikey Dole in P2, Griffin's in third place at the moment. A lot of pressure. And this might give the opportunity here for Will Redford, as we can see just in front of these two at the moment, to maybe try and scamper away, because they will be looking behind him as they come down Lakeside again. Very tricky corner, this one. You literally want to try to be flat out, but as the race progresses on, you literally just have to hang off the throttle a little bit coming down into Shallow, and a perfect illustration of how to take that corner like an expert there from Mikey Dole. Not quite getting under pressure at the moment from Griffin's in third place, but I'm sure with, like you were saying, currently only 8 minutes into a 15-minute race, so not long to go. Oh, as we see another car there just get caught by that tyre, the concrete tyre barrier.
Yes, Will Blackwell Chambers, this year's MX-5 Super Cup champion. What is it with the MX-5 Super Cup champions though? That's Sam Smith hits trouble first, then Luke Herbert, and now this year's brand new MX-5 Super Cup Pro Class champion. He's in the battling with Jack Noller. He tried to possibly, I think he thought about a move up the inside, and Jack Noller, of course, also was very lucky not to clip that tyre stack either. But Will tries to get himself together again. He would have been in 6th position had he stayed there, but he's now rejoined, possibly with damage on that car as well. He's behind number 3 of Richard Wootton now. I think he's put his name as Richard David in the iRacing sim, but it's Richard Wootton in car number 3 that's there in 12. So down from what was 5th or 6th down to 13th now, with some work to do here to try and make his way up if he can. They're both trying to chase after George Pelosi as the battle continues on, heading towards 2/3 distance in this first race. 3 15-minute races in tonight's activities. Down the out of Druids and up towards Lodge, and Blackwood Chambers has a peak, but I wonder if he is suffering with damage, how damaged that car is, and how much he's having to try and handle it as best he can. He's going to try and get a good run here over Deerleaf to look for the outside line on that left-handed curve. He'll be on the right-hand side for Old Hall, heading down towards turn 1 across the line. When the brakes in towards the right hand, he's got the track position he needs. Woodson tries to fight it, but realises that Will's probably just a little bit too quick. Through he goes, and that's up now back into 12th position. But he's now got a chance to try and claw his way back. And given how much the cars in front have been fighting behind him when he was in front, he might well start to pick them off one by one. If you see here, the lead battle start to close up a little bit because Mikey Doble has got that gap down to, that's not half a second anymore, that's a little bit less than that as Will Redford continues to lead. But I would say anything that Mikey Doble and even Tom Griffiths, who's staying with them, in this second part of the race now, Andy, starting to find their groove a bit more with this Mazda MX-5 Global Cup car and actually getting onto the back of them here. So it looks like rather than Will running away, we could potentially have a bit of a three-way scrap on our hands for the lead in a matter of moments.
Yeah, certainly will be. I mean, the slipstream in this car is quite strong, so that's why Will has not been able to get away from the chasing two behind of Noble and Griffin. So it's going to be an interesting end to this. Only 5 minutes left of this race, so around about another 3 laps after this one to go. So we may start seeing some slight lunges towards the end of the race to try and get them positions. But at the moment, it's pretty much status quo. We can see in the timing tower, these three have not changed positions at all from where they started out on the grid. We got Wedford in front, Doble in second, Griffiths in third. Then there's a big gap back to the 4th place of Jack Nola at the moment, but you can just see him there in the background. So this fight is really going to heat up coming into the closing stage of this first race.
Fantastic battle at the front, particularly Mikey Doble, of course, who will have battled with Tom Griffiths before, of course, because these two, when Tom Griffiths was back in his BMW Compact Cup days, will have gone toe-to-toe on more than one occasion. So definitely these two know each other quite well. And, of course, they're translating their real-world battles into the sim at this point in time. But, of course, the easy thing to remember is the harder these two fight each other, the easier it is for Will to keep on making a breakout in front. So they're going to have to try and either work together here to try and get around Will Redford and stop him running away if possible. They've managed to do it for a little bit so far. If they carry up this rate, you might well start to lose even more time. This is a bit of a stack up here following the next run of cars. This is a 5th position downwards, just behind Jack Noller. So this is now at the back, this 4th and 5th. So yeah, Noller and Higgins, and we've got Harwood here in 6th position. Kendall, Jep, Craner's in here 2 in 9th, and Joseph Doble in 10. So 2 of the Dobles in the top 10. Velocity 11th, and then also trying to close in now is Will Blackwood Chambers in 12th. Then we've got Richard Wood in 13th. They've got the number Richard Bliss, who's in 14th position up there, the City Car Cup champion. Ryan Lundy 15th. There's Etheridge, Dalton, Hutchins, McGregor, and Andrew Dyer rounding out the top 20. And Lee Britton, after his adventures, particularly after his off that he had exiting Island Bend, he is now up back into 23rd position. So he's kind of roughly around about mid-pack or so. But it's good to see we've got plenty of scraps developing here wherever you are on the field. There's lots of battles going on, particularly this scrap's going on from mostly cars towards that bottom end of the top 10 backwards. So it looks though at the moment it's quite nip and tuck between them so far. Jep on the back of Kendall, Harwood and Higgins. See Ben Crenner trying to join in here. So it could be a bit of a tasty scrap developing for 6th position downwards here, Andy.
It certainly could be, and that's the good thing about these cars is it's quite hard to get away if you're that lead car, which enables the cars behind to just tuck up and up beneath in the slipstream to close all the gaps down to make it really interesting racing throughout the field, like you were mentioning. Lots of little battles going on here, but pretty much staying quite conservative at the moment, these drivers out on track. Nobody making some real decent lunges, but as we say, this is Richard Bliss trying to defend a position here, managing to save it. Probably took the unorthodox line there, the car number 8 just behind him, and just lost a little bit of speed and just opened himself up for the car behind as well.
And that was a bit cheeky there, just squeezing Rowan Lundy onto the grass a little bit there. He's now allowed Chris Etheridge to get involved with a big dive up the inside from Rowan Lundy, trying to make it stick, but he couldn't quite make it stick there too much. He went deep diving to the inside line, and round he goes up at Old Hall Corner. So that was Rowan Lundy. I think that was a bit of out of frustration there because he was kind of cut off a little bit by Richard Bliss on the run down towards the right-hander at Lodge. I think a bit of frustration, a bit of almost, sort of a grievance there, trying to go diving up the inside to try and retaliate, and couldn't quite get it stuck when Richard Bliss shut the door, as he was entitled to do, given it was his corner in many cases. So couldn't quite get it done. He's going to have to keep going again after the few positions that he's lost. Meanwhile, Will Redford has managed to pull away now. That gap was just under less than half a second. It's now back to 1.2, and there has been a change for P2 as well off camera because Tom Griffiths is there, but another dive up the inside in towards the chicane. He goes through. Big dive to get through to the first part of the chicane inside. Second part holds the line perfectly. That was Mikey Double getting straight back through. These two know each other well from Compact Cup. This is literally a Compact Cup-esque battle here in the virtual grounds. These two battle, but as I say, they keep on battling like it is, or it's going to benefit Will Redford as he continues to pull away. The gap is now from 1.2 to 1.9 in the space of a few corners.
These two are just banging doors together. We just saw an excellent pass coming down into turn number 10 into Hislops, and Doble got the best bit there, but Griffin's fighting back hard now. Got the outside line here around this corner. Doble will have that inside. Oh, it's a touch again, and unfortunately, Griffin's just goes slightly off the track, but like you said, gives a really easy race win at the end to Will Redford. Doble gets that second. Griffin still manages to get third place with Nola getting the fourth. So great racing there at the end.
Stuff, and they're still banging doors towards the line. Ben Crenn and Joseph Doble wheel to wheel across the line, separated by 0.6 of a second. And Joseph Doble only just pinched P8 on the line. But incredible stuff. Will Redford takes the first ever BRSCC Winter Esports Series race win, but incredibly by 2.9 seconds. He gained about 1.7 seconds in their last few corners alone, given the battle between Doble and Griffiths. Mikey Doble gets second, Tom Griffiths third, then it's Jack Noller, John Higgins Jr., Richard Harwood, then Matt Kendall, Joseph Doble, Ben Craner, and Will Blackwell Chambers did recover to the top 10 after his incident, ahead of Richard Wootton and then Richard Jepp in P12. Well, that was pretty energetic to get things underway for the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. I think we'll probably see the result, hopefully, in a second with the full result to quickly run you through it. But amazing stuff to get things started. And I think it was one thing clear. If you regularly race an MX-5 either in this sim, as Will Redford tends to do in many cases, or if you race a real-world drive MX-5 car or similar in real-world life, you're going to do pretty well on these cars. And those guys really did rise towards the front of the field and showed their pace in many cases.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it just shows how close to real-life racing, iRacing can be. You know, you see there, like you were saying, the MX-5 drivers really coming to the forefront in that first race. I think the big shock for me was, as you mentioned, Lee Britton. I think he was playing yo-yo in that first race. He got up there, got hit, went back down to around about 25th position, got up again, got hit again, and ended up 18 positions down where he was. So hopefully his second race will be a lot more less entertaining than what his first race was.
I think I certainly hope to do so. I think the grid is essentially set by the results of race number 1. So wherever you finish in race 1, it pretty much determines where you'll start for race 2. It should mean that Will Redford will be back on pole position again. Mikey Dale will be in front of him as well. That's the
practice.
His results. I thought for a second that Mikey Dale had a penalty. Right, there's the actual result on the screen. I panicked for a second, thought Will Redford had got a penalty. Right, let's quickly run you through it then. So Will Redford gets the victory in the first ever Mazda BRSCC Winter Esports Series race, with Mikey Doble in second place, Tom Griffiths third, then Jack Noller, John Higgins Jr., Richard Harwood, Matt Kendall 7th, Joseph Doble 8th, then Ben Craner and Will Blackwell Chambers round out the top 10 from Richard Wootton, Richard Jepp, George Palozzi, Richard Bliss, Chris Etheridge, Keith Dalton, Simon Hutchins, and Robert McGregor rounds out the top 18 drivers. Then we shuffle through, if we can, possibly to 19th position downwards, as we see the cars are really starting to form up for race number 2. 19th was Rowan Lundy from John Pethick, and then Andrew Dyer, Hill Rosenthal, Matt Goddard, Gary Preble, Aidan Edgar, Piers Chandler, Luke Herbert classified 27th, and Lee Britton 28th. And then quickly Alex Port, Harry England, Jason Graytrix, Stuart Bliss, James Riley, Nick Grindrod, Callum Graytrix, and Sam Smith were the cars who hit trouble before, as we're straight into race number 2. So, underway for starters' orders. I think we're missing Mikey Doble right at the start of this race, but he should be starting on the front row, but I think he's late, so you might not get him underway unless in the pit lane. As race number 2 gets underway, and it's an easy start for Will Redford, but a good start for Jack Noller in the white car with the black bonnet on the left-hand side for second, going up the inside towards Old Hall Corner, and has got the jump on Tom Griffiths. Meanwhile, up the inside there, I think it was John Higgins Jr. under threat from Richard Harwood, up through Old Hall for the first time. Now, can they all get through safely this time by? They're 3 abreast down the avenue towards Cascades, and maybe not. That's between Craner, Doble, and possibly, I think that was either Smith in the mix there as well. Up through Cascades, Craner gets out wide onto the grass. Riley crossing to back onto the circuit if he can. He's got to be careful not to charge the path of somebody, which he doesn't. They're all getting through. Well, 2 more cars up onto the grass in the background. It looks like they're a slightly better start. There's a bit more contact. One of the cars spinning around in the background also. most people have just about avoided him, so that was a bit of a cleaner start, especially towards the back there, Randy. But the front runners were really trying to make moves as Ben Craner goes diving down the outside into Richard Woodson. That was a phenomenal pass from Ben. He really is fired up in the second race, despite he's off onto the grass. He's not hanging around. Oops, there's more contact. That's Lee Britton off again. He really can't stay out of trouble in this inning at all, can he?
He certainly can't. And this really, as we see a big pile-up possibly here coming into Britain's there. It's one of the cars there, car number 5, Rosenthal, facing the wrong way around the track. So I'm not sure if he got a little tap going into there. So, as we got another incident.
Tom Griffiths, who was on the podium in the first race, round he went at the hairpin, more cars off the red. That's a Negger just about surviving. Lee Britton's off again for the second time. Bit of an energetic start, if you can call it that, for this second race here at Oulton Park in Lee Britton's rather accurate parking there, spinning around right in front of the tyres. That more cars hitting stripe. Hey, Negger. Oh, boys, keep it clean out there. That's John Pethick getting involved. 77 was involved. Piers Chandler. Whilst all that's happening, completely oblivious to that, it's Paul Redford who leads from, looks like in second place, Jack Noller. We'll get the proper orders as they come across the line in a second to end lap number 1. But lots of shuffling around. But I think Drellin's running pretty higher, it seems, though, in this second race after the first one. They've all got the taste for it now in this first race. Trying to take 1 or 2 more risks on the first lap, Andy, and it's not really paying off for some of them.
No, certainly not. It is you've got to be brave on that first lap if you want to make them lunging moves, certainly with them tyres being as cold as they are. But Will Redford got a relatively free pass off that line, as we saw Mikey Double not really taken to the grid, so didn't quite get up, and he's right at the back of the field at the moment in 31st. Keeping it nice and clean, as you can see there, all the people in the pit, so just managing to pick up some position, but down to 29 from where he started. But Will Redford at the moment's getting a little bit easier as we watch further back. Rich Davis just taking that a bit offline, and Hutchinson's just coming around Shallow Hill Bend and trying to get it there, but it's just all action. And like you said, the first one was probably a banker, Scott. Now they got the flavour of it and the taste of it. This second and third race will undoubtedly see some optimistic moves, should I put it lightly.
I think that's the best time you could put it politely. In many cases, yes, some very optimistic moves have been taken here. Matt Kendall surviving that almost off on the exit of Island Bend, but now they've got this first lap out of the way, they are starting to just calm down a little bit now they've got themselves back into the. They've realised they're a little bit over enthusiastic. To say that, someone's taken, I think it looks like Richard Wood has taken the cone with him on the chicane towards his slop. So it's all going on here, and I spoke to you soon, didn't I? Round goes 37, Simon Hutchins with Piers Chandler. One's facing backwards, one's racing forwards. That's the worst place you want to be, right in the middle of the road, XT Knickerbrook, up towards Clay Hill. Richard Woodson gets back onto the road, but he's now overtaken by 91, which has just gone through. 91 was Gary Preble, who is in the C1 Endurance Series, but also is a regular in plenty of saloon car series, in particular with his very rapid Honda Civic, which is just as quick as a Super Tourer, would you believe? Anyway, the battle's going on here as we see Richard Woodson under threat here. Once again, that was a big dive up the inside fence for somebody else. That was car 44, Sam Smith. Now, I should mention Sam Smith. He started at the back of the grid in 36. He was one of the first retirements. At the end of the first lap, he climbed up to 2 laps, I should say. He's climbed up to 17. That is up nearly 20 positions in 2 laps. So incredible stuff from Sam to get himself up as quick as he has. He's already deep into the top 20. Also trying to charge with him is Luke Herbert in car 47. He's up to 18th now towards the back after he hit troubles. So the MX-5 Super Cup champions of old from the past couple of seasons already trying to work their way through as the front runners here are getting stuck into it. This is Joseph Doble scapping away with Richard Jepp as Jepp makes a big move up the inside. Tries to get across to hit the line. Making it stick, Joseph Doble has gone skating almost across the road and into the gravel on the far side as well. Richard Jepp gets back onto the road. Careful, Richard! Oh, that was very, very close. It's getting tasty out there, shall we say, with these guys. They really are trying 1 or 2 more optimistic moves. They're coming to the fore. Some are working, Andy. Some, not so much. This is Robin Lundy getting sideways in front of rather bemused Keith Dalton. It really is all happening in this second race.
It certainly is. You know, these drivers just need to calm it down a little bit, follow their lines, because as soon as you get offline around this track, it really impacts your speed and obviously the line that you can take. But that's probably the risk you got to do. As you can see, Andrew Dyer here going through his slops, coming out through Knickerblock. It's a great little set of corners, but it's not really an opportunity for passing. So if you're going down that over the top through his slop, coming down into turn number 10, into that chicane side by side, somebody's got to yield, or else it could be certainly shenanigans going out on track. We've already seen quite a few drivers going side by side around corners and unfortunately get slightly hit off. But Andrew Dyer at the moment has got Lundy and Smith all over the back of him, just trying to make that opportunity move if they can, but not. He still manages to keep 12th position, does Andrew Dyer.
Only just though. Ryan Lundy was a little bit sort of pendulum effect sideways, one place then the other, exiting out of Druid's corner, and that gave the run for Sam Smith to get past him. Here comes Lundy back up the inside, and Smith moves across saying, I'm a double MX-5 Super Cup champion. What are you doing up the inside line? All very close. They almost make touch. If they do touch, it was enough to put Sam Smith back onto the grass. He sweeps back in front of Ryan Lundy, who will not take no for an answer. Down the hill into the avenue through Cascades, under brakes, a little wide the first part of the corner there for Andrew Dyer. That puts Sam Smith on his tail, and the rest of the cars behind trying to get close. Ryan Lundy gets the big block there from Sam Smith. You are not coming through. And now here's the view back from Sam Smith, the double MX-5 Super Cup champion, been plying his craft mainly in the mini challenge this year, but he did make a one-off appearance back at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit, which was supporting the team on 24 hours, and Rowan Lundy just getting rather impatient. I think the steward will want to work without that one, so will Sal, I think, because I'm not sure he'll quite appreciate it being punted out of the way at Shellor's corner. The run off the corner back down towards the chicane here at Britain's, I think that Rowan realised that it wasn't quite the move he needed to make, so he just lets him have it back and sits back to try and get another move. Dyer's a bit all over the place on the exit at the chicane. Meanwhile, up at the front, where it's a bit more civilised, he says rather hopefully, Will Blackwell Chambers in P6, holding off George Pelosi in P7 in the proper Mazda MX-5. And up the hill, just overtook Pelosi to make it up into 6th position. Will Redford still leads from Jack Noller in 2nd place, Higgins in 3rd, Harwood 4th, and Craner 5th. This is Craner. Oh, Craner Harwood. Oh, we joined that at the right time, didn't we? Round goes Craner, round goes Harwood. And I think he went into the side of Will Blackwood Chambers. Blackwood Chambers off into the barriers. Oh, boys, calm it down out there, please. And if only just hit half distance, there's quite a lot going on here in this race. Joseph Doble into up in the 5th position, Bliss in 6th, McGregor 7th. And it's Dalton, Harwood, and Sam Smith, who's up into the top 10 now. And we barely hit half distance. Let's just take a look at that again, Andy. Just getting a bit, we're so enthusiastic, they're just getting a bit too enthusiastic. I think that getting adrenaline get the better of themselves out there tonight in the 2nd race.
Yeah, you can see there Will Blackwood Chambers just getting caught up by the car coming back onto track. I don't think the car rejoining the track had much choice in the matter. Pretty much would have lost all grip and couldn't really slow his car down, because these Mazdas are not the quickest at slowing down, certainly when you start getting into a slide. But here is what happened. Ben Craner just took the back there, just carried on through, then got a slight tap on the back. And unfortunately collected Will on the rejoin there. So one of the hazards, I suppose, of real-life racing as well, but certainly not a sign just of real life. It is here in the sim world as well. As we join back for this battle for the 10th, Andrew Dyer still out there in 10th place. Got Harwood behind him, and Lundy, as we saw that earlier move on there, is certainly one that will take the opportunities if given to him. Is Lundy, car number 12 at the moment, but is under pressure from Herbert in 13th, as we can see there. Herbert managing to make that move, and no, it's because of a Lundy mistake there coming out of turn number 9 through Britain's. I'm not sure quite what happened there. Maybe hit the grass on the exit.
He may well have done. Ryan Lundy, he regularly plies his craft when racing with BRSCC in the Club Sport Trophy. Oh, and more contact. This Lundy turns across and didn't realise Richard Jett was going to be there, and round goes Richard. So I think Rowan's had one of the most eventful races out of anyone out there, which has been quite intriguing. He's now somehow still in the top 20, which is quite remarkable. This is the battle for 4th going on. Meanwhile, Will Redford will come across the line here to complete another lap. He's practically oblivious to what's going on here. He's one of the only drivers that's actually out there racing and hasn't actually had a position change. He starts in P1, stays in P1, and he's already about half a second quicker than anyone else out there at least. Jack Noller holding on to 2nd place, Higgins 3rd, then it's Pelosi and Joseph Doble in 5th position, then it's Rob McGregor 6th. It's 7th place for Bliss, 8th for Dalton, 9th for Sam Smith, up 27 places from the back of the grid. And it's 10th for Dyer. He's in that scrap with Herbert. Harry England up into 12th. So that's our Fiesta Junior racer. Great job for Harry, who's racing one of the new Mark 7 Fiesta Junior race cars. Then we'll be back for next season, I'm certain, as well. He's up there in P12. We've got Goddard 13th, then it's Etheridge, Lundy, who's still continuing on in 4th, 15th position somehow. 16th is in there is Harwood, then Britton, Port, Bliss, and Blackwell Chambers, who's continued on despite the incident there with Ben Craner and co. And then we've got also in there Tom Griffiths after his lap one spin up in the 21st. So, dare I say it, it has just about calmed down for a few minutes here, so we can take stock of where everyone is. But Will Redford at the moment, again, just blissfully spread eagling the field here, 3 seconds up front to the good, and just extending that gap nice and comfortably by at least half a second. He looks in total control here in the second race.
Certainly does. I mean, he had a really given start considering the second place car didn't take to the grid, so had a really easy start, and then has just extended it lap on lap, and to be 3.2 seconds ahead is really showing his dominance here at Oulton Park. But one of the other things to consider about this race is the top 10 will be inverted for race number 3, so you really want to try to get into that top 10 as we're watching Tom Griffiths here in 21st trying to make a move here down. Yeah, he manages to get it through, and that's a great passing move as he come down through Lakeside again. So that was down through Cascades. But getting that inside line, you see there the car behind of Blackwell Chambers was slightly wide coming through Cascades, which you can lose a lot of speed. Certainly when you get later on in these races in the Mazda, the tyres start going in and you start sliding a lot more.
So this is further up the road. That was Andrew Dyer having a mishap. So was Richard Bliss, this year's City Car Cup champion. Over he goes. And just the exit out of Knickerbrook. No dramas on the exit there. So Luke Herbert picks up 2 free places, which means he was running 10th at just now. So before he moved up a couple of spots, so he would have been, had he stayed there, getting the reverse grid pole, the 3-time MX-5 Super Cup champion. But as it happens, he's now up a couple more spots, unless Richard can make his way back past, and so can Andrew. So easy pass up from 10th to 8th. Meanwhile, this is Gary Preble, car number 91, the man behind Silver Lake. This is a replay. Ooh, big side exiting Island Bend, noses it into the barriers, and gets it going again. So that was all by himself. I guess the big answer to the question always when someone has a spin is, or an incident, is did they jump or were they pushed? As in, did they do it by themselves? Did they spin? And on that one, and it was simply all by himself.
Yeah, it certainly was. Just lost control coming around Island Bend. Just probably give it too much mustard coming around there. The back end slid out, and as soon as the back end starts going, you've got to be really quick to catch it, or else these cars do slide out on you quite easily on iRacing. But you know, very similar to real life. But we're currently watching Luke Herbert in P9th at the moment, looking back at Richard Bliss in P10th at the moment, who will be our pole sitter for race 3 if he can manage to stay there. But you know, we've only got 2 minutes left, so another lap after the current one to be going on. But you can just see at the front there, Scott, Will Redford is just commanding this race. 4.1 seconds of Nola in second place, and Nola is not under pressure at all from the guy in third place, so it's purely down on speed.
Yeah, great pace and Will out there, of course, showing his promise as he actually got the white flag out, so that's one more time around Oulton Park. Meanwhile, this is the scrap over 4th place. George Palozzi in the red, number 49, against Joseph Doble in the white and blue number 11 with the orange roll cage. And Doble has a peek up the inside and towards Old Hall. Palozzi will have to give him the space if he can try and squeeze up the inside, but Palozzi has got the grip and he holds on to that 4th position spot. It will put him, if he stays where he is, 7th on the grid for the reverse grid race 3 coming up after the conclusion of this one in a few minutes' time. Now they come through in P8. Still with, sorry, it's P4 and P5. Still McGregor P6, Dalton P7. Sam Smith, I can't believe he's from 26 to 8, 36 to 8. So that's an incredible amount of spots he's taken up in such a short amount of time in this race, 15 minutes. Then it's Luke Kerr at 9th and Richard Bliss, who, as it stands right now, will be on reverse grid pole for race number 3. Then it's Dye 11th, it's England 12th, and Goddard, Etheridge, Britton, Harwood, Port Scott past Lundy, who's in pit lane. So he's obviously hit more dramas in this race too, as it looks like he's had another incident. Stuart Bliss up to 19th, up 13 places, and Tom Griffiths, after his spin, is up in P20 at a Blackwell Chamber. So it looks as though this scrap is going to go all the way to checker flag. It's the closest spot in the highest position. As Doble was a little bit wayward there in the exit of Hislop, the Britain chicane. Not quite sure why, but he has a slowdown penalty.
Well,
just had missed
look at his front right. Look at his front
right. Is that front right suspension damage? So you might well have hit. You might have clipped just about the tyre stack at the first part of that chicane. Well, good, I guess a good spot on that one. I didn't spot that he's also going to go into the tyres. Yeah, that's possibly front right suspension damage, and that's unfortunate for Mike Joseph. Round he goes. Oh dear, another one that's been fallen foul. Meanwhile, the checkered flag is out, so waiting for Will Redford will come down towards the right-hander at Lodge for the final time. And so far, at the moment, in terms of pace, while they came close in race 1, all the shenanigans behind him has meant that this man has just absolutely sailed away out in front. He could be on for the hat-trick if he can do it from 10th on the grid. Up to the checkered flag. It's currently 2 from 2 for Will Redford here at Oulton Park in the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. Another victory for car 42. Excellent driver, but he does so by 5.2 seconds this time. See if he can do the same in race number 3. He's going to have to pick his way through the top 10 to do so if he wants to try and make that happen once again. Nola second then. It's John Higgins Jr. third. George Palozzi is 4th. eventually ends up unchallenged after Joseph Double's mistake. It's then McGregor 5th, Dalton 6th, and they're still battling behind. This is still between, this is now Tom Griffiths and Blackwood Chambers over 18th spot. So we'll keep our tabs on that one. Sam Smith starts 7th, Luke Herbert 8th, actually moved up to 8th position. It's Bliss 9th, but Andy Dyer runs out the top 10. So actually, because of Joseph Double dropping out in that last lap after suspension damage, it moves everyone else behind him up one. So it now puts Andy Dyer on pole position alongside Richard Bliss. So that'll be quite intriguing to watch. It's Dyer 10th, Harry is 11th, our Fiesta Junior driver. Great job from him to get just outside the top 10. We've got on Etheridge, Britain, and the rest of them still battling towards the flag. But so far, it seems as though, Andy, 2 races from 2, Will Redford at the moment, they came close in race number 1 and managed to pressure him all the way to the end before they battled in the last couple of laps to extend the gap. But in race number 2, with no one to challenge him, Will Redford sailing away with victory.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's going to be interesting in race number 3, starting from P10. He's not had to fight his way through the field yet, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can pick the pocket of the 9 cars that are going to be in front of him off the grid. And it's going to be all important to try and get that really good getaway from the start line, which is a tricky process in itself on iRacing. We saw on the first opening rounds a couple of the cars doing a lot of wheel spins, and as soon as you do that, you're going to look at losing 3 or 4 places. So getting off the line is going to be critical for Will Redford to be able to see if he can make it 3 out of 3 in round number 1.
He's certainly going the right way about it in terms of pace, and looks like if he can do that, it'll be quite a hefty score that he'll take away from the opening rounds of the championship. And a good drive from Jack Noller. Of course, he's someone who not only races the MX-5s in real life, but he's also part of the Williams Esports outfit. If you ever watch MX-5 Championship Racing or see his cars in pictures, you'll see that on the front wings he has got Williams Esports emblazoned on that, so good that he proudly displays the team he runs for. And I'll be intrigued to see on this reverse grid poll what the likes of Andy Dyer, Luke Herbert, and in particular Sam Smith can do, given the fact that he'll be starting right towards the front of the grid in about 4th position or so. It means that he has a good chance to pick his way through and make a decent start. If he can keep himself out of trouble on this first couple of laps, I think Sam could be a dark horse here. Here's Rowan Lundy, who's had all sorts of ventures in this second race, but he's going to carry on towards the flag. He's actually one of the last ones waiting on to take the checkered flag, so Rowan, he's usually used to a front-wheel drive Toyota Celica in the Club Sport Trophy, but in this occasion he's taken to the rear-wheel drive Mazda MX-5, and it's not been the easiest of transitions from real to sim and from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive. It looks like he may or may not get to the flag in time before we have to advance to the next session as we come towards the end of it. So it's going to be pretty tricky to see how Will Redford comes through from 10th on the grid, but I'm certain with some of the performances he's been showing so far, Andy, he's got the stuff he needs to potentially make it happen. But again, with some of these top drivers around him, and particularly as we've seen how messy it can get, particularly in the opening stages, it might well be tough if he gets stuck in that pack.
Yeah, definitely will be. But I think I'll probably agree with you. Sam Smith in that first race didn't have the best of race. Started race number 2 around the back end of the field. Got up 27 positions in that second race. Managed to get into that top 10. So we'll have that reverse grid. And I think it was just all about keeping it clean for Sam. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in this third race.
Absolutely. Let's just recap the results from race number 2 then. So Will Redford wins again from Jack Noller in 2nd place. Then it's John Higgins 3rd, George Palazzi 4th, Robert McGregor 5th, and Keith Dalton. Sam Smith from the back of the grid in 36th. That's up 29 places, incredibly. Puts him 4th on the grid for the reverse race. Starts 7th, well, finishes 7th. Luke Herbert 8th, Richard Bliss 9th, and Andy Dyer finishes 10th. And he will start the reverse grid race coming up from pole position. Then it's Harry England 11th from Matt Goddard, Chris Etheridge, Lee Britton, Richard Harwood. Then it's Alex Port. Joseph Devil does make it to the flag despite his last lap incident, which damaged his suspension, and gets him to the flag 17th, ahead of Stuart Bliss. Then to the recovering Tom Griffiths and Blackwood Chambers finished 19th and 20th respectively. Then it's Matt Kendall, Simon Hutchings, Piers Chandler. Rowan Lundy, despite everything he went through in that second race, still finishes 24th, ahead of Ben Craner and Richard Jetpool of Wish for More, as also Mikey Doble, who picked his way through to 27th after he was late to the grid. Aidan Edgar, Callum Greatrex, Gary Preble rounds out the top 30. And then it's Huell Rosenthal, Jason Greatrex, Richard Wooten, James Riley, John Pethick, and Nick Grindrod, who is another one from Mazda MX-5 circles, this year's MX-5 Super Cup Masters champion, and also the former City Car Cup champion from 2021. Back in 36th position, not having one of the brightest evenings so far in one of his first forays, I believe, into sim racing. So I think it's certainly safe to say for most people, Andy, that for those who might not have raced too much in iRacing, but have got the service and have even picked up sims for this series, for some, for this series, it might be a bit of a baptism of fire, but that's what this is all about, to kind of give it a bit of fun, bit of sort of different kind of racing here, different way to go racing. Of course, some drivers might still be adjusting to the difference in awareness, shall we say, because you don't really get that. You get that quite a bit in sim, but in real life, but you don't really get too much in the sim unless you've got you're properly immersed with VR or proper wraparound screens that you've got on your sim rig. So I think that's one of the things, and the sensations they're going to get, particularly. They're going to feel all the sensations of the car and what's going on the track, all just through the wheel, rather than through their backside in the seat and through the pedals and the wheel at the same time with all the feedback that they're getting. So for some drivers here, it might feel a little bit alien, despite all the practice that they've done. But I'm certain throughout the rest of the season, would you agree that some of them will start to get to grips with it more as this esports winter series progresses, and they'll get stronger and stronger as the season goes on, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it takes a little time. I mean, in this series, we do have a fixed setup, so all the car setups are exactly the same. But that produces its own problems in its right, because, you know, everybody likes the car setup to their individual driving style. But because they've been given one car with one setup for the whole season, you've really got to get to grips with that. So some people may be able to pick it up a lot quicker than other people, might be more suited to their driving style, how the car reacts around corners. So, you know, for the people that don't can't quite get to grips with the setup, you know, some of the later tracks, they'll start coming into their own and getting that practice and starting to get a lot quicker. But I mean, I was expecting Will to be sort of at the front end of the field, and it was interesting what you said about the setups. I mean, when you first start off on iRacing, you normally got a small 26-inch screen with a steering wheel just stuck onto a table, and as you progress through, you realize you need better equipment, and by the end you've got this all singing all dancing triple screen 32 inches, all the force feedback wheels and the proper pedals, and it proper gets you really immersed in it, because it is that having that peripheral vision, and the more screens that you have, you get a better vision of where the other cars are around you. So it may be that the difference is setup, and I'd expect Will to have a really good setup, being that he has been iRacing for quite a few years now, so Will have probably an advantage over some of the other drivers. But as the season goes on, I'm pretty sure we'll see some of the guys at the back of the field start progressing forward.
And there will be some as well who will recognise some of the circuits. There might be some drivers here who very much prefer Oulton Park compared to other circuits. We'll go to the next rounds, of course, coming up after that, and they may well be certainly finding that either Silverstone or Donington Park or possibly Knock Hill works better for them too, or even Brands Hatch on top of that. So there will be circuits which will favour certain drivers on top of it. But internally, I think that having the baseline understanding of the sim, of the fixed setup of these cars, and of how the handling setup and the physics setup of iRacing works, I certainly want to try and get the baseline of that, particularly from this first evening's worth of racing. Take that as their baseline, use that to try and learn over the next couple of weeks before the next round, and make themselves a little bit quicker going forwards. So we'll see how they're going to work for this final race of the evening. It's the reverse grid top 10 here coming up, and it is Andrew Dyer who will start on pole position from that reverse grid. Richard Bliss alongside him. Then Luke Herbert and Sam Smith, watch for him from fourth on the grid. I'm certain he'll be one of the ones to watch from this race in P4. Then it's Keith Dalton, Rob McGregor on row 3, George Pelosi and John Higgins on row 4. Then Jack Nola and double winner Will Redford starts back in 10th. Harry England and Matt Goddard come next on the 6th row of the grid. And we move down to row 7, which is Chris Etheridge and Lee Britton, followed by Richard Harwood, Alex Port, Joseph Doble and Stuart Bliss on the 9th row of the grid. And then two cars to watch out for also to tear their way through from row 10, Tom Griffiths and Will Blackwell Chambers. And it's Matt Kendall and Simon Hutchings, Piers Chandler and Rowan Lundy. Can he keep out of trouble this time from 24th on the grid, being quite far down the order? Also wants to watch Ben Craner and Richard Jett. They had some issues in race number 2. They'll be back from row 13. Mikey Doble also higher up the grid this time, back in 27th. After he started late in race 2, but it's Aidan Edgar and Callum Greatrex and Gary Preble, then Rosenthal, Greatrex, Riley, David and the rest as we get set for race number 3. Let's see if Dyer can hold on. Can Will Redford pick his way through from 10th to make it 3 out of 3? Let's find out as the lights go out. So race number 3 is underway. It's a good start from Dyer from pole initially. Second for Richard Bliss. They're all slotting in here. It's now Dickie Keith Dolph trying to find a gap here between Luke Herbert and Sam Smith heading in towards turn 1 for the first time. They all seem to be keeping their P's and Q's just about okay for these first couple of corners. A little loose there for somebody on the exit of turn 1. That's Jack Noller. So here comes Will Redford down the outside. I kind of spoke too soon because in the background they're once again having some troubles up at Old Hall Corner, but the leaders seem to be getting through at the moment. Okay, again, somebody drifting out wide onto the grass. Can he keep it going without making any contact? Oh, no, he can't. I think that was Richard Harwood or somebody making contact in the background. Meanwhile, it looks like Sam Smith has made that start that I expected him to, but Andrew Dyer holding on though. Sam Smith up into second place and move up to third place. That's Herbert into the back. It's Richard Bliss. Round he goes. Round goes to the City Car Cup champion. Herbert's off the road. There's one car off to the left, one to the right. Several cars missing them all over each other. That's going to be pretty tricky to try and clear up here. More cars going off on the exit as they all try to scramble for position. It's all busting for 1 point because Oulton Park is a very narrow circuit in itself, and I think at this first lap when they're all kind of shuffled together here, and it gets incredibly tough to try and keep out of trouble. Couldn't do it towards the back, bit of contact towards the front, and 1 or 2 in the mid-pack as well. Again, maybe adrenaline running a little bit too high, we think, in this first lap, particularly when cars are out of position. This is going to be quite an interesting one if they can't keep off each other.
Certainly is, and obviously I did notice at the start, and it'd be interesting to see. I think it was Harry England that might have done a jump start on the race 3. I saw his car move a lot earlier than the rest of them, so it'll be interesting to see if he comes in in the next couple of laps to do a penalty there, because I think he might have jumped the start. If not, it was an absolute blinder of a start from him. He hasn't really capitalised on it currently in P13th at the moment, out on track. But looking at our first 2 race winners, Will Redford currently up to P8. So, oh, wow.
More contact, that's Jason Redrick's off into the barriers. I think also, I don't know if that's Jack Noller got caught, if he's a bit far back and caught up in that as well. Richard Jepp is in there too, and oh, goodness me, inside of Richard Bliss. I'm not sure if he had suspension damage, that possibly meant he couldn't properly turn. Either way, that's Richard Jepp's race done before it really got started in race number 1. Little bit too messy, I think, in his first couple of laps once again, but they're going to try and possibly sort that out in the next round. Meanwhile, if we just move on from that one as quickly as we can, it's Smith who leads then from the end of the opening lap. It's Dyer in second place, Higgins third from Pelosi fourth. Someone off the grass a little bit wiggling around. I think that's what that was. Well, that was possibly McGregor, I think it was, who's getting his tail out a little bit too much. So it's Noller fifth, Griffith sixth, Redford up to seventh after he started P10, so not immediately jumping towards the front. He's having to pick his way through in the pack now, just behind Tom Griffiths. It's then McGregor 8th, Lee Britton 9th, it's then Doble 10th, Joseph Doble in P10, but it's Craner, Blackwood Chambers, England, Mikey Dell was up to 14th, up 3 spots from, no, it's more than that, up to 14 spots where he started. That's started 27th, up to 13th already. And it's Harry England 4th, Harry England's dropping back, so he's had an issue. And also so it is Mikey Doble a couple of times. He's lost out to Brian London, he's tumbling down the order, so that's looking a bit tricky. Up into second place goes John Higgins Jr. meanwhile, as he goes up past Andrew Dyer in towards Britton's. So Hislops, and into exiting out of Knickerbrook now. Looking back for Andrew Dyer. His next challenger will be George Pelosi now in 4th position. And then Noller, Griffiths, Redford, McGregor, Britton, Crane rounding out the top 10. But Sam Smith, as we kind of anticipated, Andy, great start from 4th after the progress he made for the back of the grid in race number 2. And so far, holding station in the lead, just as he had done before when he took himself to 2 MX-5 Super Cup titles. As the battle is now on here, Andrew Dyer, Andrew Tapp from both sides. He's got now, looks like Noller to, he's got Pelosi to his left and Noller to his right, and all sorts going on here as the end of lap number 2.
Certainly was there, and I think Higgins got that crowbar out coming down through Hilltop down into Hislops to make that passing move there on Dyer. Literally barged him out of the way coming into that, managed to take that position there on the previous lap. Managed to secure the second place, but like you said, Smith at the moment has now got a bit of free air out in front. Very clean driver, seems Smith in first place, and behind him is all the mayhem at the moment. Just watching Will Redford just get in 6th place there over Dyer. So Dyer going the wrong way down the field. Started this the previous lap in P2, currently in P7th at the moment. So Will Redford just slowly making his way through the field and not that far off first place at the moment, only 2.8 seconds. So, you know, he's doing the right thing after all them opening lap incidents we saw further down. And there's some big movers and shakers that have been caused by that opening lap incidents. Tom Griffiths up 14 places from where he started. Ben Crowner in 10th place, up 15 places. And then you got the really big losers, Richard Bliss, unfortunately getting contact on the last corner down 24 places. So this third race has really put it in the mix here, as we see. And again, Robert McGregor going side by side here with Dyer. Dyer's just gets it slightly wrong, makes a little bit of contact with Ben Craner behind, who I was just mentioning, commentator's curse. We see another car going off there. I think that's Will Blackwood Chambers. Yes, it is car 14th, who is further down the field now.
Yeah, well, Blackwood Chambers, I think we'll feel a bit aggrieved there, because he was a bit of an innocent party in that, when there was cars sort of having issues all around him, having get a bit sort of sideways. That kind of all started when we saw Andrew Dyer and Rob McGregor going side by side. McGregor kind of went quite deep into the second part of the Hislop chicane, and that they sort of saw Andrew Dyer get run out wide. There was contact into the side, I think Ben Cray, and also I think Lee Bristol on top of that. And through all of that, somehow Will Blackwood Chambers got turned around. That's kind of what sent him off the road. As Andrew Dyer heading to the pit lane, so our pole sitter from the reverse grid is in, as is also, I think that's also Richard Woodson into the pit lane, so problems for him. Meanwhile, at the front, our early leader, Sam Smith, who started 4th up into the lead, has been caught now by John Higgins Jr. Now, he was quite quick in the test race in the practice sessions earlier on, so he's something to watch out for, I'm certain. He's running in the livery, which essentially is the TV runs with in real life, which is Hills Motorsport. With the great momentum up the inside in towards Ireland, here he goes into the lead then, past Sam Smith, in towards Ireland Bend. That's the move completed into P1 past the two-time MX-5 Super Cup champion in real life. 3rd for George Palozzi, who of course is a City Car Cup racer in real life also. 4th for Jack Noller, 5th for Will Redford. He has to try and make his way past a couple more places to stand a chance of making it 3 from 3, and he's also under threat from Tom Griffiths. So we've got this breakaway 6 here at the front. Rob McGregor and everyone else behind are scrapping over 7th downwards, but now into the lead now, John Higgins Jr. trying to make his way down towards the run at Hislops under brakes, and then just that second pack bunching up now with McGregor, Britton, Joseph Doble and Ben Craner to round out the top 10, with Chris Etheridge also trying to give chase as we continue to look back and see what Will Blackwood Chambers back in 14th. So dare I say it, he says rather nervously, I think everything's calmed down just a tiny bit enough for these guys to kind of have a proper race here and start to have some proper on-track battles rather than one or two cars going left, right and centre off the road. And hopefully that'll stay the same as we go into the second half of the race. As we tick over 7.5 minutes with 7.5 still to go and a scrap on still for the lead as Higgins Jr. comes under pressure from Sam Smith down towards the right-hander at Lodge Corner.
Sam Smith just getting caught up. We saw the power of that slipstream there coming down through Lakeside. Literally Higgins being able to get the move done, coming through Island Bend and making an easy pass for the number 1 position coming into Shellow's corner. So really using that slipstream to his maximum effect. But certainly the battle at the moment we can sort of see here. Griffiths, McGregor, Doble all around P1, and I think that was Britton unfortunately getting hit out wide coming from round turn number 1, losing a little bit of momentum. Still got onto the back of Craner and Doble, so his race certainly is not good. It's good to see the Britons finally having a half decent race here and not being taken out, so we can really see what the Mazda Cup driver is all about.
Definitely so. It looks like these guys are starting to get to grips with these cars now and start to really sort of work them a little bit harder as we look through Shell Oils now with about 6.5 minutes still to go. John Higgins Jr. still feeling the pressure from Sam Smith. Is here now at the inside to try and make a move. For 4th goes Will Redford, and Jack Noll doesn't fight it too much. He lets him through and tries to sit back in a slipstream over Hilltop down towards the Hislop chicane once again. So Will Redford's next target is going to be George Palozzi in the red number 46 car. 49 car, excuse me, and down towards the complex they go. And I wonder here that John Higgins Jr. possibly is starting to allow Sam Smith to be backed into these 4 cars. I think he is, because you see George Palozzi has closed that gap pretty substantially. He's got Will Redford all over him here on the run out of Knickerbrook over Clay Hill here. Now bear in mind he'll be on the outside for Clay Hill, he'll be on the inside for Drew, as we can hold this position as Redford goes right to the white line here to hold on to the plate. He's got the inside line and track position to make it stick. Up the inside he goes. Well, George Palozzi has no choice but to capitulate and let him through. So into 3rd now, and now with the run off the corner, it could give Jack Noll a chance to get through into P4, and also maybe Tom Griffiths to make the proposal of the top 5 spot also. As here comes Noller in towards Lodge, and that is the move just about done. Palozzi gives him the space. Then look at Tom Griffiths straight onto the tail of both Jack Noller and George Palozzi. Over the crest of D-Elite they go. Here comes Griffiths to the inside line. Palozzi just squeezes him a little bit, but he's going to be Griffiths if he makes the dive. No, thinks better of it. Heading down towards Oulton. He'll sit back and find another opportunity. And now the key thing's got to be is you watch here McGregor and Craner under attack. Also, Joseph Doble being passed by Lee Britton. But the key thing I think here at the front now, Andy, is that Will Redford has been released now to chase after the top 2 as we watch that scrap that was going on towards the end of the top 10. Will Redford has been released now. His next target's got to be to get past Sam Smith as quick as possible and then challenge Higgins for the lead. We'll hope those 2 in front start to come together. It looks as though it's going to be possibly advantage Redford, and Smith has dropped back by about 0.6 of a second now, and Redford is all over his tail as they head down towards the second half of this lap.
Yeah, I think you called it exactly right. Higgins there just backing up Smith into the pack that was behind him. There was a bit of tussling for 3rd, 4th and 5th, but now they seem to have got themselves in a line, so Smith's certainly going to be under pressure from the 2 race winner Will Redford in 3rd place as we look on board literally inside of Will Redford's Mazda MX-5 there. Really going to be coming under pressure, so I'd expect we're always looking on the inside here, coming down in, jot the inside line, doesn't quite get it done, but I think what he's doing is trying to put Smith offline to get the same move as he'd done the previous line. As we can see, they're trying to take the inside line coming through Knickerbrook, coming up to Clay Hill. Is he going to get it? No, he's not at the moment, but he's certainly lining up Smith, and exactly that. Smith now is just looking in his rear view mirrors for Redford behind him. It's giving Higgins the opportunity to try and scamper away, because Smith's really trying to defend half from Redford, but Redford needs to make this passer move as we looks down the inside here, coming down into Lodge here. Is he going to get it done? Yes, he does, but nearly saw Nola getting a little hit there to Smith, trying to get to the optimistic pass done as well. But Will Redford up to second place at the moment, 0.8 of a second, so we'll still have, oh no, there is Lee Britton and McGregor again. Lee Britton has just not been able to buy any luck in any of these 3 races. I feel sorry for the driver.
Yeah, they were latched together in that one after that incident. Let's look at the replay here. So this is down towards Lodge Corner, and it's Britton that goes for the dive up the inside. McGregor does leave the door open a little bit. They touch once, they touch a second time, and I'm not a clerk or a escort or a steward, but initially it looks as though that Britton tries to take his regular racing line, doesn't realise that McGregor's kind of still got half his car alongside him. So I'll let the stewards, if they're going to take a look at that, simply just deal with that themselves, because I want to stick to commentating rather than deciding whose driving is good and whose is bad. I was going to say, before Will Redford got past Sam Smith, if there's anyone who's going to make it difficult to pass him in an MX-5, it's going to be Sam Smith, being the double MX-5 Super Cup champion that he is. But Will Redford gave him absolutely no choice but to let him through, as he managed to get the inside line and make it past. He was very quick to try and make that defence to either try and at least attack Redford back to get past him. As you see here, this could be crucial for the lead here. Here goes Will Redford. This is the pass he needs to make the lead, to make it 3 out of 3. Goes for it. Higgins tries to go back round the outside. There's a bit of contact. I think he's just about held on. Higgins puts 2 wheels onto the grass. Smith gets sideways on the exit. And again, look at this. All this battling here has set Will Redford up beautifully. Start to scamper up the road already to try and get past him back markers. Now he's leaving John Higgins Jr. to defend from the Dyson for third, with between Jack Nola, who's on the grass, and Sam Smith, who's still there in P3. Nola comes backing up the inside line if he can hold on, but Sam Smith clips the curb and swipes across the front of Nola's car and maintains third position. But that, in many cases, was a beautiful setup from Redford. He essentially put John Higgins Jr. inadvertently, but not purposely, out wide, which then gives him a few car lengths he needs to get away. And also immediately, Andy stacks him right into the back of the third now, which means he can scamper off up the road. What should be, I think, the last lap of this race. I think White Flag will come out just about now. Yes, it does. And it means now he can start to escape and get the lead out to almost a second, which he has, whilst Higgins, Smith and Nola are so preoccupied with each other battling over the podium places, they're not going to keep up with him, and he should go away, if he stays this way in the race here through the back markers, with his third win of the night and a clean sweep of all 3 from the first round of the eSports Series.
Yeah, definitely was. That was a great setup there from Redford on Higgins coming down into his lap. Literally pushed Higgins slightly right. You saw him onto the grass, and it gave an opportunity there for Smith to maybe pickpocket that second place. But unfortunately, Smith had a little bit of an incident as we watched Chris Edridge getting slightly sideways coming through Cascades there. But yeah, Smith couldn't capitalise on that. Made a slight mistake for himself through his lap, which really didn't help him get that second place overall. But certainly, as you said, Higgins, Smith, Nola are the ones that are fighting out. Redford pretty much has this race sewn up at the moment as we see cars go left and right through Britain. So I think it was just the passing of the way there. We're trying to get out of Will Redford. So I think we call him Moses from now on, parting the cars in the MX-5s. And it was yeah, it's great. But I mean, Will Redford has just been outstanding here today. Certainly the track for him, got the cars beautifully set up to how he wants it, really adapted to that fixed setup, as we said. Led from start to finish in race 1 and 2, had the difficulty of starting in race 3 in 10th, but has slowly and methodically just made his way to the front of the field, and now just pulling away from Higgins and Smith behind him, cars 60 and 44. Will Redford here has just had a commanding day at the races, and to have 3 from 3 from the first 3 rounds of the championship, it's got to be a good day in anyone's book.
Certainly is. If this is over for the rest of the series, everyone better watch out, because he really has been the man to beat. Up to the checkered flag. You simply can't knock him from top spot. It is 3 from 3 and a perfect sweep as Will Redford weaves in delight in celebration, and so he should. It's victory from 10th on the grid. John Higgins Jr. takes 2nd, and Sam Smith takes 3rd. It's Jack Nola 4th, Tom Griffiths 5th, and George Palozzi, Ben Craner, Joseph Doble. It's Rowan Lundy had a much better race this time, but managed to pick his way through to P9 this time. Much cleaner race for him. And then rounding out the top 10, Chris Etheridge, Will Blackwell Chambers after his spin picks up to 11th. Mikey Dover also charges up to P12. They're still battling here further back. This is Matt Goddard and Jason Greytrex. This is over 16th position. Then Goddard, I think, will just about hold on, unless Jason can beat him on the run to the line. The red line racing driver pulls out. It's going to be side by side towards the flag, but it's going to be Goddard who just beats him by roughly around about a tenth of a second at the flag. The rest of the field comes streaming through on the second flag. And I have to say, Andy, I think as the rest of the field comes streaming through, whilst there have been a few incidents, which I'm sure that Will and Co will discuss and try and put right for next time if they can, I think all round, in terms of entertainment, in terms of really good racing, aside from those, I think it's been quite a success here, as we see. that was Stuart Bliss. He wasn't quite thankful of John Pethick going down the outside in towards Druid. So I think Stuart Bliss wasn't quite going to take that one. John Pethick, I'm not sure appreciated that one either. But again, aside of some of the incidents that we've had tonight, I think in terms of the actual racing, when it's been down to it, in terms of the quality of some of the driving that we've had, on the whole, kind of incidents aside, it's been quite a solid first night for BRSCC Esports, and I'm certain, hopefully, if one or two of the drivers start to take a little bit steadier next time, let's not comment on that one, because that was, I'm not sure if that was, I don't want to say things like retaliation. That would have been the wrong Bliss anyway, because he tagged Richard Bliss when it was actually Stuart Bliss that made contact with him. But the less said about that, I think, the better. But I think on the whole, Andy, let's move aside from any incidents. It's been a great first night to kick off BRSCC Esports. It's shown that the drivers are very keen for it. They're very competitive. They've got just as much adrenaline and enthusiasm for it as they do in real life. So I think certainly as we go forward to the next rounds coming up in a couple of weeks' time, I'm certain that we'll get even better race than we have done tonight.
Yeah, we certainly will do, and it's just getting that groove into the iRacing. Some of them relatively new to the iRacing platform, although the real life drivers, it's completely different surroundings. Like you were saying, you know, in a real race car, you got the peripheral vision, you got the all round, you know where your car is. iRacing, depending on what your setups are, can be very restrictive on what you can see. But 3 15-minute races in a Mazda around Oulton Park, I mean, you can't have a better three-way combination for the opening round of the season, and it has been spectacular.
Really has. Here's confirmation of race number 3 result. Then Will Redford takes the perfect hat-trick by 1.4 seconds from John Higgins in second place, and then Sam Smith in third, followed by Jack Noller in fourth, Tom Griffiths fifth, then George Palozzi, Ben Craner, Joseph Noble, Rowan Lundy, and Chris Etheridge who round out the top 10. Will Blackwell Chambers is 11th, from Mikey Doble in 12th, and it's Luke Herbert, Richard Harwood, Simon Hutchings, Matt Goddard, Jason Greytrex, and Aidan Edgar rounding out the top 18. Then we scroll through from 19th downwards, where we see on the screen from the rest of the top 20 downwards, where we have 19th for Richard Jepp, 20th for Keith Dalton, 21st for Harry England and Stuart Bliss, John Pethick, Matt Kendall, Lee Britton, Richard Bliss, then Alex Port and Gary Preble rounding up the top 28, and then it's Rob McGregor, Andrew Dyer who hit trouble after he started on pole, Huel Rosenthal, James Riley, Nick Grindrod, Piers Chandler, Richard Wooden, and Callum Greytrex. So that is that for racing. We've got a few people who are lined up in our interview area. I'm sure with plenty of stories to tell from the evening's racing. I think the best person to start with, of course, has naturally to be the man who has dominated it from start to finish, and even started from 10th in race number 3, couldn't stop him coming through. That we have to start by talking to our triple race winner for tonight. That's got to sound good for Will Redford. Well, pole position for race number 1, and then dominating race 1 with the cars behind. Even better performance in race 2, and then charging your way through from race 3. I mean, you couldn't have lost it better, could you?
No, I mean, like you say, it couldn't have gone much better. Maybe I could have got the fastest lap in race 3. That would have been the cherry on the cake. But it was good. It was really good. Race 1, you know, I was under a bit of pressure from Mikey behind. He kept me honest. I wasn't really pulling away from him, so that was difficult. Then race 2, I think he disconnected and didn't make it to the grid, so I was a bit disappointed with that. And then race 3, obviously, just keep your nose clean and get to the end, and that's what I managed to do, and I came away with the win.
So we know this form in terms of MX-5s in iRacing is something that you're quite familiar with. We're just seeing on the screen here that you got a bit caught up in that third race in 1 or 2 incidents, particularly at Shedwell's hairpin. But in terms of your familiarity with these cars, and of course the car that you race in real life, which is in the Pacific Cup, which is quite different characteristics as a front-wheel drive Honda Civic. So how much do you have to adapt from switching between, in real life, I suppose, the characteristics of a front-wheel drive race car like that to a rear-wheel drive sim car like this? Is there anything you have to do in particular, or is it pretty much just an easy enough switch, but just is it the same principles as simply driving a race car as you would in real life, or are there any things that you have to tweak and change to understand the transition from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive?
Obviously, I've got a lot of experience in driving, you know, all sorts of cars in iRacing, and they're mostly rear-wheel drive. So I'd say I'm a little more familiar with rear-wheel drive on the sim than what I am with front-wheel drive, because in front wheel drive cars I only really drive in real life, so it's a bit more the opposite way around. But the main differences are just the braking is one, because in a front wheel drive car you really got to get the car rotated on the brakes, and bringing in the throttle on a rear wheel drive car, you can pretty much put your foot down and it will rotate, whereas in a front wheel drive car, as soon as you bring your throttle in, you're going to start understeering. So they're the two main differences, but apart from that, they're all fundamentally they're mostly the same.
So it sounds like you're pretty well adapted to either side of racing. In terms of going forward now, of course, the next round is in a couple of weeks at Silverstone. You did have some pursuers and those around you who you were battling with, not just through the field in race 3, but as you say, keeping it honest in race number 1. You had a bit more of a gap in race 2 to pull whilst some of the drivers were hitting strike behind you in that sense. Going into Silverstone, who are the drivers that you're going to be looking out for in terms of main contenders, should they be on the same sort of form as they are tonight? And is there anyone else that you think in the field that didn't quite match the pace that you expect them to, but should be there at somewhere like Silverstone?
I think mainly, the top 5 that are in qualifying, being Mikey Doble, Tom Griffiths, Jack Noller. I think they're all pretty quick, but there's a lot of people in this series that are new to iRacing and maybe new to this car, and it takes a bit of getting used to. And I think as the season goes on, people are going to get quicker, and it's going to be a lot closer towards the front, especially as we get to the shorter and less technical tracks where the draft comes more into play. So the longer we race and the closer it's going to get, and I might have an advantage now, but maybe in a few weeks' time when people have had time to settle in and learn the car, that might be completely gone and it could be a different story.
Certainly could on that side of things, but you've driven superbly all evening. Andy, any questions for our triple race winner?
No, it's just a quality race. I was expecting Will to be up there as he is an iRacer. So congratulations on your top 3 wins, mate, and a great start to the opening round.
Thanks, guys.
Great stuff. Whatever, our triple race winner. Thanks for chatting to us, and best of luck for Silverstone next time out. Well done. Right, let's see if we can bring in someone who finished second in race number 2 and have a chat to him, and that's Jack Noller. Let's bring Jack in and see how he found life in the MX-5 in the virtual world tonight. Jack, of course, you're familiar with esports racing for Williams Esports and in the sim, and also, of course, you've been campaigning in the MX-5 Championship in real life. So how did it feel getting behind the wheel of a virtual MX-5 for the first time, representing Go For It, and getting up and amongst some of the front runners in this first event?
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. It felt, because I'm used to ACC, felt a lot more like my MX-5 than I did a sim. So it was, and especially the racing, the way it was so close and slightly aggressive at times, but fair enough most of the time. I think Netcode's got a couple of moments in my first and second races, which unfortunately ended a couple of others where the game thought I hit a wall, but I didn't. But overall, that last race was chaos, but a very fun chaos.
Yeah, I think chaos is certainly something to describe, at least points at 1 or 2 of those races instead, but I'm certain that they'll start to be a bit more calmer as the season goes on. You're looking relatively strong in race number 2, regardless of any actions from anyone else around you. Obviously, Will had the pace to manage that, but how comfortable did you feel in second place, sort of having that sort of distance between the cars behind you, be able just to settle down and get a good spot? Because you looked as though you were pretty much in the groove once you'd settled down in the first couple of laps.
Yeah, it was good. The paces felt good. Qualifying was a bit of a shame because I had contact on one of my laps, so I had to reset, and that means I had a heavier car towards the end. So I was a little bit further down maybe, but the gaps were quite big, but it meant the race pace was actually quite strong. I feel like I was probably matching about Tom, and Will was a little bit faster, like about a tenth, but seems to hang on to his tyres a little bit better towards the end. So overall, I'm really happy with that. I think I could have pushed towards a podium in that last race, but I decided to play it safe, get some points, especially as Carnage was sort of going around, especially on that last lap with all those back markers. I'm like, I've got here, many others haven't. Let's just consolidate fourth.
So they've got a smart choice to bag the points that you need and take them forward to the next round. So good, confident, solid driving there. Andy, any thoughts for Jack here?
Yeah, it's just obviously you've raced really well today. Obviously, we've got 6 rounds. What round are you really looking forward to in the championship?
Well, I need to buy Knock Hill, so trying that circuit for the first time will be fun. Next round should be fun as well because I'm moving house. So I'll be racing at a completely different rig. So I'll be, this one will be all packed up, and so I'll be racing in the middle of a certain location on someone else's rig to just be able to race. So I'm looking forward to seeing how well I can do with adapting to that with a couple of hours before the race.
Well, normally, as it goes in the past, you know, if you hear people are just buying a track, just sitting in and doing really well, so the omens are good for you anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the saying goes, it's not what you've got, it's how you use it. So certainly if you can use it as well as you've done tonight, I'm sure you'll be just as fine on that one. Great racing, congrats on second place, congrats on the points you scored, and we'll see you at the next time out, whatever setup you've got for the next round at Silverstone. Well done.
Thank you very much. Brilliant broadcast as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Jack. Right, we've got a few more regular MX-5 drivers who are waiting to have a chat. I think we should have a chat with a man who has won the title 3 times, but tonight had plenty of events both up and down the grid. So let's see if we can bring in Luke Herbert, who has had 1 or 2 up and downs in tonight's racing. Luke, of course, well experienced with MX-5 in the real world. I think we can have to say your first adventure, at least in BRSCC esports circles, in a virtual MX-5. Is eventful an understatement? Because it looks as though you had quite the evening tonight so far.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really done sim racing. I did it back in 2013 when I was racing Clios, just to get used to driving on the left-hand side. But apart from that, I bought a computer 2 weeks ago just purely for this. So yeah, it's good fun. It's a bit nuts out there, but you know, it's sim racing. There's no fear factor, is there? So people are gonna go nuts.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely work on that people going nuts part over the next couple of weeks before Silverstone. But of course, you know, you're someone who's well versed, of course, in racing MX-5s in real life. As someone who's done it and been there and won the championship and got the T-shirt 3 times, from your expertise, having driven these Mark IV Cup cars here, how much of a similarity or difference, if any, is there compared to the car which you've been used to, having won the championship previously? What sort of similarities or differences have you taken away, at least from this first round that you've done so far?
So what's mega about it is the tracks are spot on. So when I first started doing it, I tried to visual back to when I was racing and approaches and visual points, and it is exactly the same. So that's a great tool. And Lee as well, Lee Britton, who's one of the organisers of this championship online, he came and joined my team, and you know, he said, "Oh, I've done sim racing, I've done this and that," and my expectations were low from someone that's done sim racing. I thought, well, it's nothing compared to the real thing, and he's bang on straight away. So it just goes to show that actually it's a great training platform for someone that's never experienced. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, great, same overtaking spots. Yeah, really good, really enjoyed it.
Excellent. So going forward then, of course, Silverstone coming up next, I think on the international circuit. What do you think you need to do in the next couple of weeks? Of course, fix setup, so you can only do so much in terms of what you can do with the car you've got underneath you, but apart from the obvious, which is practice, what do you think you need to do in the next couple of weeks to get yourself a little bit closer up the front, to get yourself a few more points at the next couple of rounds?
So me, Lee and Tom, because obviously we're a team in the Extra Real Super Cup, we spend the evenings doing test sessions. So we all help each other, look at sectors and just replay laps and work out where we can go quicker, because we all like slightly quicker in little bits. I think last night I did 200 laps around Oulton Park, which is unheard of, just to try and find some pace. But it worked. I found us, you know, I was about in the testing before the qualifying, I was only 2 tenths off. So same game with Silverstone, we get some test sessions in. I'll try and learn off those boys because they're quick, and then see what we can do. But yeah, it's just going to be lap after lap. When I get time, try and get another couple hundred laps in before 2 weeks.
It's like you've done this before in real life by the sounds of it, in many cases, but almost sounds pretty similar. But as I say, practice makes perfect, so I'm certain that'll be the case. Andy, any questions at all, any thoughts for Luke here?
Yeah, just obviously you did mention that you just bought a computer 2 weeks ago, and we were talking on the stream about setups that you drivers are using. What current setup are you using to race this series?
So I've got the absolute basics. So I bought a computer that will run the highest graphics, but I think I spent 600 quid on the computer. And I'm using a G25 wheel back from 2010, I think I bought it, with one 27-inch screen, that's it. So I've got no moving rig, no high-tech steering wheel, no surround screen. So actually for, say, 700 quid I think I've spent, I'm there or thereabouts. So it just goes to show anyone can, you know, if they think they don't need to spend thousands of pounds, because lots of people do spend thousands of pounds, you don't. You can just come in low budget and have a good laugh.
Well, it'll be interesting to see the last round of the season. I'm going to ask you the same question. I'll bet you've got a force feedback wheel with triple screens and everything by then.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of my saved searches at the minute on Facebook Marketplace. I'm just looking out for that deal. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with what I've got. So it'd be luxury to have something better, but we'll see. see how I get on. See if I get any quicker with this. If I do, then I might look to spend the £1,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah.
Knowing Lucas is driving a team boss, he will not do things by half by the end of the season. So I'm certain that purchase will be made before the end of the season. Absolutely certain.
It's like a drug, isn't it? You start off and then you get addicted, and then you want more and more and more. So yeah, let's see what happens. But yeah, I think I'll stick with this for Silverstone and then see if I can save some pennies.
Definitely.
Great stuff. Right, well, we'll
Cheers,
see you at
guys.
Silverstone. Great stuff. I know you've had one or two ups and downs tonight, but great job all round, and we'll see you for the next one. Well done.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Well done.
Good job. Right, let's bring in one of his teammates who has had, well, if he couldn't get, he could either get bad luck or no luck at all many cases, but we'll see how he found it. Let's have a chat with Lee Britton, who is also part of that Luke Herbert Racing stable. Lee, we're just saying, if you weren't getting any luck, it's been bad luck all tonight. You've had one or two high spots, but it's not really been anything to remember, has it, really?
No. I obviously qualified reasonably well. I think 6th in the first race, and I got a bump from behind into turn 2, and that put me on the grass, and then I was right at the back and trying to wait my way back through, and then someone came off the track and joined back on just as I was coming, so I got taken out again. And then the second race, pretty much the same thing all 3 races. I just had quite bad luck. I was hoping that, it might be a bit cleaner racing than we normally get on public lobbies, but I think that everyone was a bit keen today.
Yeah, I think keen certainly the word I think in terms of many cases. But for the moments that you had when you weren't getting caught up in issues or having problems, how confident were you with the pace that you had? Because it looks like at points, once you're up there and you're inside the top 10 at 1 or 2 points, you definitely had the pace to survive there, or at least make up a couple more spots throughout the race as it progressed. So how confident are you that you've got a good base here that you can build on for the rest of the series?
Yeah, I mean, I think quali's a good sign for pace. A couple of people couldn't get clean laps in. But generally, I think my pace was good, although my car was actually damaged in the first race, so there was not enough power there. Second race, I was dealing with my wheels were out of alignment, so I was going down the straights with my wheel cocked 20 degrees to the right. And then third race, I don't know what happened. I can't remember. I said I have to watch it back.
So essentially what we're saying is, if you've got a completely straight car with no damage, you should be up there towards the front. But even with damage, you're still able to get it up into the top 10. So at least pace-wise, you're pretty good in that sense. And even say if you've got issues, it looks like you've got quite an ability to drive around any problems. At least keep a steady pace that keeps you around some of the cars that you should be battling with in terms of the top 10 and around that sort of point. That's got to give you confidence that even when the car's not 100%, you've still got enough underneath you to keep with them.
Yeah, I think so. I think probably for the next round, I'm going to pay more attention on trying to survive. This is a particularly difficult track, right? It's very narrow, and all the corners have got undulations, and when you're out, certainly on that first lap, the tyres are so cold that you've got people sliding into the corners. So I'm hoping the next round we might have a bit more luck and some cleaner racing. But with those high speed entries into those chicanes, that's asking for trouble when you've got like 40 Mazdas on the grid.
Yeah, I think it certainly is the case in that sense, but I'm sure that by the time they get to Silverstone, they'll be a bit more well behaved in that sense. Andy, quickly, any questions for Lee here from his adventures tonight? I think that's the understatement, isn't it?
I suppose there's always a silver lining. You get one drop round. You had 3 terrible races, so hopefully that's all your bad luck for the series. You can scrub this one off and look forward, because like Scott said, we saw you in that first race get hit in the front of the grid, go back to the back, get yourself back up, get hit again, and I think at one point I call you the yo-yo driver, because you seem to make good progress and then come back or get into an incident. But you certainly showed you got the pace, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do in the next rounds.
I hope so. I mean, it's definitely important in these moments to separate performance from results, right? Because if I just focus on results, I'm not going to sleep tonight.
Yeah, it certainly is.
He's going to be pouring over the data like Ayrton Senna until the early hours of the morning. I can see it now. Lee, listen, obviously commiseration for the bad luck that you had, but pace-wise, at least when everything's going right, seems to look good. So fingers crossed. I'm sure you'll work hard over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you for the next one at Silverstone where you can go again. Well done.
Cheers, guys. Appreciate it. See you soon.
Great stuff. One last guy to have a chat to, which is the guy who I've been mainly dealing with, has done quite a lot of the background stuff in this series. But again, is another one who had his moments, but didn't have the gist of evenings racing particularly, and that's of course is Will Blackpool Chambers. Will, I guess in terms of like others who had one or two points to strive throughout the evening, I think the phrase "your evening could have gone a bit better" is probably a bit of an understatement, isn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit. I was having a good race in race 1 with Jack, and then my simulator decided that Jack hit the tyre wall. I hit him, but that isn't what actually happened, so I just got destroyed in race 1, so that was good. Race 2, we had a bit of a recovery drive, and then someone ended up broadside across the circuit. I ended up on my roof, so that was good. And then race 3, we drove back through, and someone gave me an assist off the circuit while avoiding another crash. So that was good. So we got another, what was it, a 10th, 11th, and a 20th. It was one of the best weekends I've had all year.
I don't believe that for a second, given the fact you're an MX-5 Super Cup champion. But in any case, I think what we can talk about in general, if your races were to forget, let's just talk about the bigger picture, of course, because let's admittedly, you mostly, and also I myself have been putting this together along with Lee and a couple of others in the mix as well. Just to look at the bigger picture here, how satisfying is it that we've managed to get our first BRSCC esports event underway? 36 cars on the grid, 36 drivers. One or two. We need to obviously get them to down a little bit in terms of some of the driving out there, because I think probably Lee and Luke summed it up better, is that some of the guys were a bit keen tonight in terms to kind of get themselves a good footing off the ground and to be quite quick. But I think we can both agree, with time over the next couple of weeks, more drivers will get practice, they'll start to get more confidence, a bit more spatial awareness on the sim and that sort of things, and they'll start to get themselves a bit more sort of primed and ready. So when they get to Silverstone, hopefully, fingers crossed, we should be in a position where we shouldn't have as much energetic scenario, shall we say, as we had at some points tonight.
Well, we've got a very interesting collection of drivers. Obviously, normally, if you're coming into sim racing from maybe a non-racing background, you're building up your racecraft at the same time as building up your speed on the sim. What we've got in here is there's quite a few guys who have got very little iRacing experience, or even very little sim racing experience on the whole, but they race. So the problem is they have the racer's mentality and will go for every gap without quite having the sim racing talent to back it up. We've also got different levels of kit. You know, you've got some guys, we've got blooming Williams esports drivers in here. We've got guys that are sat with on a G29 with a monitor about 2 foot, you know, about 3 meters away. We've got a massive spread of you know, talents and equipment in this field, and I think that's causing some interesting driving at the moment. But as you say, people will get used to it. These cars are quite tricky, especially on cold tyres, and we'll improve as we go, and we'll bottom it out. Also, this circuit doesn't help. The chicane tyre walls being very immovable. You know, I think a lot of people came a cropper of those, and I think some of the circuits we've got coming later in the season, Donington, Silverstone, etc., where it's a bit wider, will allow people to enjoy themselves more.
Yeah, and I think the fact that iRacing haven't quite worked out the physics for tyre stacks at Oulton Park just yet might have possibly frustrated one or two people too many, I think, in terms of some of the corners that were taken. But at least on the whole, then, moving forward to Silverstone, of course, we're looking to obviously expect more of the same in terms of numbers throughout the rest of the season. But I think we can safely say, on the whole, I think after this one, for a first esports event for BRSCC and everyone involved in this point, I think we can, on the whole, call it, some of the driving standards aside, moving that as a separate point, I think we can call it a success. I think it's something that, as you mentioned, is we're using as a benchmark to use it as a proving ground to see what the appetite is like for esports within sort of a club racing setting. And if it works, then there's a scope for potentially more series throughout 2023 and sort of beyond that on top of it. But I think we can say from a first point, round one's out of the way, and I think we can safely agree that it's been quite a success, and I'm sure we'll be looking forward to Silverstone with a lot more enthusiasm than we already have, and I think it should be quite a good run for the rest of the season, particularly going into the new year when we get Christmas out of the way and New Year, and then we get to January and February when the sharp end of the season starts.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think, you know, we've got 40 entered. We had 36 racing tonight. We've got 4 or 5 on the reserve list, so overall it shows we've got a really healthy iRacing grid within the BRSCC, and that's hopefully something we can grow. It's hopefully also something that other clubs are keeping an eye on, so that they can build it up, because we, you know, as I was saying earlier, we've got an eclectic mix of the paddock, and what we've got in here, which is also really fun, is we've got people that would never normally be chatting at a race meeting in one group. It allows people to make friendships, make endurance teams, and just sort of boost esports and iRacing and all of that on the whole.
I think that's a very good point you make. I think we'll definitely see some more inter-paddock communication and friendships between this off the back of it, because and I wouldn't be surprised if some, for example, on the weekends where we have, let's say, Compact Cup and MX-5s together, there'll be some drivers, there'll be some cross sort of paddock conversation from drivers and sort of meeting up, and there'll be sort of quite a much nicer, better atmosphere out there in terms of conversation and stuff. But then there already is, of course, in the MX5, in the BRSCC paddocks across the board. But yeah, I think on the whole, I think we've got ourselves a really good base here. We've got a first meeting up and running. And I think it looks like we're going to be set for hopefully another 5 meetings worth of fantastic racing. And I know that yourself and everyone else will be involved in that one. But I have to give personal thanks, because I know you've done the bulk of the work in the background stuff. I'm now sort of around to do a little bit more, given some other big events we've been doing the last few weeks to get sort of done and sorted, which have been done to close off the season. So, but I have to say, on broadcast here, Will, very big thank you to you, of course, from not just initially suggesting to do this. I know you've been doing so for a while, but to get it off the ground, to be doing the background work that you've done on the server here, on Discord and everything else, to get the drivers together, to get us to this point. It's been a mega effort from everyone, but I think especially in many cases from yourself and Lee on that side. So yeah, thank you very much. And I think we've got ourselves something good here to build on for the rest of the season and beyond. I think if this carries on big going as well as it is, we've started something pretty good here for BRSCC, and I think it's going to be quite a success to get this esports division properly off the ground, off the back of this esports series.
Yeah, for sure. Cheers for that, Scott. Much appreciated. So there's been a huge amount of effort and work, and obviously big thanks to Apex Racing TV as well for helping us out with broadcasting. But no, it's been a huge amount of work. Glad it's all come together.
Great stuff. Onwards and upwards then. Better luck next time, but I'm certain you will, and I'm sure you'll go ahead and practice for the next couple of rounds, and we'll see you and everyone else at Silverstone. So good job, and we'll see you out for the next one, Will. Well done. Great stuff. We have to say also a big thank you as well to Nankang, one of our main sponsors here for the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. On top of that, also Will Blackwood Chambers as well for his support and putting it all together, along with Lee Britton and Sim1 Racing Simulators. Also on top of that, we have to say thank you to the guys, of course, Apex Racing TV, to iRacing, of course, for giving us the platform to race here, and also to Run Your Fleet, who are BRSCC sort of club and associate sponsors. And in real life, if you see Run Your Fleet, of course, they supply the brilliant runyourfleet.com Jaguar safety car, so thank you to them. Go and visit runyourfleet.com for any business fleet, vehicle fleet management needs if you need to as well. So closing thoughts then for what's been a very all-round, I think, successful first evening for the BRSCC's first ever official esports venture, the Winter Esports Series. Plenty of energetic driving out there, I'm sure, Andy, but on the whole, I think to get many different drivers, as many different paddocks and championships that race within BRSCC on a virtual grid all together in identical cars with identical setups on the track together, and to have them put on a display like that when the racing wasn't cars going left, right and centre, I think we can call it a success. It's been some really good racing when it's been out there proper wheel to wheel, and I think it really does now hopefully set something of the tone going forwards for the rest of the rounds from Silverstone onwards. I'm confident if it keeps as it is and the driving standards get a bit more refined and drivers start to find their feet a bit more with the sim and the car and the circuits as we go along, that when we get to the end of the season, we'll have a proper grid of drivers here that are going to be proper wheel to wheel, proper racing, and it'll be something fantastic to close off what's been it's a very successful so far first esports series for the club.
Yeah, it definitely has, and I think it certainly is a baptism of fire. I think Will put it right. You know, you've got race drivers new to iRacing, think they can just get into the sim and just do what they do out on track. Different physics here on iRacing, and the drivers will be aware of that, having the first 3 rounds under their belts, and I'm pretty sure the following 5 tracks that we visit, the standard in racing will just get better and better and better, and it's all about a learning platform. And like Will said there, you know, it's a great tool for the drivers to learn new tracks, and probably on another thing, the mechanics are probably thanking everybody as well, because they don't have to fix the carnage that was ensuing in that race as well.
Definitely so. This is not a regular MX-5 race weekends where they have to go and find spare bits from around the paddock. This is definitely much easier, simpler for that on that side. Andy, massive thank you for you've been in the commentary boxes. Well, I'm looking forward to the next one already. It should be a fantastic way to go racing over the off-season, to keep some of these drivers' hands in ahead of the 2023 season for BRSCC, which starts, just as a reminder for those in March, which is at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. So that's going to be one spectacle to watch for. That is on, from remind myself, March 18th and 19th next year. We're building up the calendar events on the website. If you want to find out information about the esports series and also all the championships and series that run within the club, you can head to the website brscc.co.uk. If you're not subscribed to it already, hit the subscription button and the notifications bell for our YouTube channel. That means that when we go live for the next Winter Esports broadcast, you can keep in touch with that. And of course, also on top of that, we'll be showcasing some of the individual cut-up highlights of each of the races throughout the winter from all of this year's live streams for the championships that we've had on the screen. And also, if you follow our Facebook page as well at facebook.com/BRSCC. And yeah, if you want to get yourself to a track or into one of the championships, head to the website and go to each of the Formula pages where you'll be able to find all the information that you can about what evidence racing for next year, including some of the new stuff we've got coming, which is going to be fantastic to watch, including, of course, the return of TCR UK, Civic Cup on top of that, the magnificent Audi TT Racing Cup series is going to come along, the brand new electric Formula Foundation, the new electric single-seater series that we've got coming up as well. And on top of that, plenty of other established favourites like Mazda MX-5s, BMW Compact Cups, City Car, Formula Fords, Fiestas, and everything else on top. Big thank you to Andy, big thank you to Sam Fitzpatrick, who's been on our cameras and broadcast today as well, and to everyone at Apex Racing TV. Thank you to iRacing, RunYourFleet.com, to Will Blackwood Chambers, to the Britain Sim 1 Racing Simulators, and to Nankang. And thanks to all of you for watching and supporting as well, and to all the drivers for being involved. That's round 1 out of the way for the Winter Esports Series. Still 5 left to go. And next up in a couple of weeks' time, on December 15th, this is the home of British Motorsport and Silverstone on the international circuit. Don't miss it. But for myself, Scott Woodward, and all of us here at Apex Racing TV and BRSCC, thank you for watching and supporting. We'll see you next time in a couple of weeks for round 2 of the 2022-23 BRSCC Winter Esports Series. Bye for now.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.